San Jose del Cabo. Later on tonight, we're gonna do a tour, man. Panazea. Well, that's a trip. If we can't find that place, we can go in there. You all right? You good with that?
Yeah.
This is the spot he said. You know what? Get your pins. I did it all backwards. Start from here to here to here, grind it up, mash it up, make the powder, put the milk, put the chocolate, put the sugar, and the chocolate. There you go. You like tequila, huh? Go, you good. Hola. Tamale. Hola.
I'd like to officially start with a brief introduction of why I'm doing this tour today. But I would like to ask kind of where you find out about it. So please tell me.
Online?
We just Googled like top things to do here.
Okay,
and
awesome.
That came on.
So Google in general?
True, same thing.
Same thing. Okay, awesome. Now, this tour is not run by a company, so I'm not an employee. Nor I do this for myself. It's not like a one-man business. This tour is part of a community project. And the goal of this community project is to educate the new residents of Los Cabos, but more importantly, the new generations, so they can understand the customs and traditions. Now, you may have customs or traditions from the place you grew up, right? You may remember them if you think about them. And sometimes you just repeat things because your parents did them.
Of course.
And sometimes you don't really know where the source, where
course.
this came from, right? So the idea of this project is
That's
telling
life.
the people
Yeah, you're right.
where we are learning because of the traditions of this town. So we have to learn the history of the place.
True.
Right? The reason we want to teach this is because Los Cabos is the fastest growing county in Mexico. To give you a perspective, when I was born there was 30,000 people, 35 years old. So there's 30,000 people in the mid-80s. And now there's 300,000 people living there. So that's 270,000 people additionally to when I was born. And the reason so many people move over here is because of job opportunity regarding tourism. So 5 million tourists have right to Los Cabos in a year. That has been our historical record, which is in 2019 before COVID. Yep. So any given moment during the high season, there's about maybe 50,000 people here in Los Cabos on vacations, such as yourself. Yep. I'd love to say that working with tourists is all great and all perfect, but there's some challenges. Now, have you heard about a guy called Chapo Guzman?
No, shorty, no.
Not really, not so much. He's
No, I'm joking. I'm joking.
a dude from the drug cartel. And
Cineola, yeah.
correct. Chapo? Mm-hmm. So he got caught in 2016. He had got caught many times, but he kept escaping from prison. It kind of sounds like something from a soap opera. And he got, and then finally the USA said, you know what, Mexico, you can't deal with him. We're going to take him. So he was taken up to the States.
Yeah.
And the next year, that created chaos all around Mexico. Los Cabos was no exception. In 2017, for the first time in history, we started having drug cartel presence here. We had people with machine guns shooting at each other. It was the Sinaloa cartel versus the Jalisco and versus the Tijuana cartel. So three big of the strongest
New
cartels.
Jalisco.
Yeah, Jalisco Nueva Generación.
Yeah,
that's
I
the
know.
full name of it.
Yeah.
So they started shooting each other in the streets. And this was news for the town. We had never ever heard an automatic machine gun. So this was scary news, honestly. So that made us stay home. There was mixed emotions, you know, we're sad, frustrated, scared, mad, wanted to do something, didn't know what to do. These guys kept going non-stop for days and days, a couple of weeks. And
In 2017?
correct, in spring, so around this time.
But even, we were at the mall yesterday, and we even seen,
Wait a sec, don't go.
Yeah.
I'll explain something in a bit. So, when we saw this happening, the USA announced warnings not to come to Cabo because it was dangerous. Although these people were not targeting civilians nor tourists, you just did not want to be stuck in the middle, right? So as a community, we got together, we created a Facebook group, and only people who really knew got invited, and we brainstormed and thought, what were we going to do about the situation? Have you heard about Acapulco?
Of course.
Mainland Mexico was very famous many decades ago, but not really famous
Not no
anymore.
more,
Because
no.
the drug cartels took that place over. So it feels unsafe and uncomfortable to
Yes.
travel, and we thought that was happening to Los Cabos. But we got together, and we organized a peaceful march. So more than 5,000 people, we marched, all silent, all dressed in white. And it was the idea to send a message to these people, but most importantly, get noticed. We appeared on international television, and the president of Mexico had nowhere to hide from this big problem now. So he sent over the soldiers and the federales to work together with local policemen. So now the idea is from then on, we want the soldiers with their machine guns to be in the back of the trucks to reinforce safety. So perhaps you're gonna say you saw them.
Yeah.
Okay.
well, we were at the glass
Just,
house.
just say yes.
Yes, and there was some machine guns all the
Correct. So we asked for them to be here. So that's exactly where you were going. I saw it in your eyes.
Yeah.
We asked them to be here. So don't get scared if you see it again.
Oh.
Okay? Now the idea is that they showed up, they controlled the whole situation. For a moment, there was a transition period. For a month, the gunshots were even worse. Because the cartels were being persecuted by the soldiers, right? But after a couple of months, before you know it, sudden silence, peace, no more gunshots.
What
For
year?
days, for weeks, 2017. So
So-
everything was in
okay.
the 2017
All
period.
right.
Yeah, so basically by November 2017, we had no more gunshots happening. And as you've been walking around town, it does not feel unsafe anymore, doesn't it? It does. It feels safe. So we're back on track. Now the idea was restore local identity again. Hello, guys. Oh yeah. Go ahead.
Whoa! Watch it. Watch it. Watch it.
Now, when this happened, we were trying to understand exactly who the gang members were, and we noticed it was mostly kids between 12 and 17-year-olds.
Oh God.
And it was not the cartels bringing their armies from outside. It was actually that they would show up and recruit kids from our community.
Oh man.
Yeah, that's how gangs usually do.
Yeah.
They look for kids and they convince them to join the gangs. So this is actually not an actual drug problem. It was more of a community problem, a lack of identity. These kids, because there's so many people from outside that move to Los Cabos and
True.
live here now, but they don't know anything about the town. These kids show up without having friends, without perhaps for some months they lose school, they don't go to school, so they're just out there. And it's not that they're meeting kids, they're just vulnerable, and that's why they're targets. Yeah.
I'll see if I can exit a little graceful.
No.
All right. Oh, you got it. Oh, whoop! You got it.
Now-
Smooth operator.
That's where the project was born. To teach these kids about the local customs and traditions, to invite them to be part of our community. So slowly, we evolved to start doing this. And the reason you are here today is because we go to public schools, but we have to get permits and certifications and pay for insurance and hire buses, and all of this costs money. So we're offering a short version of this project we do with kids A short version is a 1.5 hour tour. We'll talk about the history of the place. And you paid, but your payment really is a donation. And I'm donating my time. So I'm sharing a bit of the time so you get to learn a little bit of the story and the funds go to the project.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so I know it's a long introduction for you tour.
No,
It's
no.
important to understand really what's happening today.
No, I got it.
Thanks for the time. Thank you. Okay, cool. Now that we know what this project is about, let's start walking.
All right. Appreciate it. And what's your name?
Chris.
Chris.
Yes.
Chris. That's the same clothing line at the mall. Igui, whatever that, how you pronounce it, can't pronounce it. Hold on.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm sorry.
All right, so please step around to the side. Cool, great. So when people say, Chris, what is there to do in Los Cabos? The first thing I clarify and say, depends on where you're going and what you're up to. Los Cabos is the name of a county, and there's 2 cities within it. I bet you figured this out by now.
Go ahead. You good? You good? You good?
No problem. So it's like having a coin with 2 faces. One is San Lucas, one is San Jose. San Lucas, we also call it San Loco.
Oh, he dropped his badge. Amigo.
Yeah,
Woo-hoo!
it's rubbish. Yeah. We'll have it's just trash.
It looked like a wallet.
Yeah, it did. So San Lucas, we also call it San Locos, which is
Crazy.
crazy, which is a fun town. It's all about high-pitched energy and festivities. San Jose, Joseph, is a Catholic name, right? So this is the old sleepy town. San Jose is more about art, culture, and history. So it's totally different one from another. Although there's one mayor to take care of both cities, so it's kind of complex.
Same county.
Yeah. San Jose has 2 big attractions. One can be seen right up here in the name of this lake at the bottom. It says Centro Histórico. And here, this rusty sign says Distrito del Arte. So Distrito del Arte, the art district, is basically this crossroad. These 2 streets are closed down for pedestrians only on Thursdays after lunch. And there's more than 20 art galleries. And on Thursdays, the owners of the galleries will be open until like 9 p.m. And you'll get to know the artists on Thursdays, because that's the day they're here. This tour today is not about art. We're not going to talk about art. I encourage you to come back and explore for yourself. If you're into art, it's like being in a modern art museum with a special exhibition, because the artists will be there. And additionally, the streets are closed down and you can actually drink on the streets. Technically, not always. Thursdays, yes. Yeah. So again, it's like being in a museum, but also being able to have a drink at the same time. But today we're going to talk more about history. And we're talking about different elements. Okay. As I said, this is a short version of the tour we do for kids. So if you're interested in something in particular, a topic in particular, you can name it, and we can talk a little bit more about it. All right. So I'll just follow a suggested path of things we'll talk about. So for example, let's talk a little bit about architecture of buildings. Yeah? Now, San Jose del Cabo is a colonial town. It's called colonial because this town was funded before Mexico was even called Mexico. It was called Nueva España. So it was a colony of Spain. It was a colony for 300 years. And that building has seen it. That building was built in the colonial era. You have to imagine that building with no plastic, no glass, no metal. That's how it was originally. So, in the olden days, walls, and if you pay attention throughout our tour, you'll be able to see bricks showing. Red brick, which is baked brick, was used for construction. Wide walls,
Was it
There was no
Cortez?
rebar. Sorry?
Who was it? Cortez or somebody else?
Cortez.
Or was it the mission people?
Both. So Cortez arrived here first to explore, and years later the missionaries arrived.
So who built this? Missionaries?
No specific last name. No, it's just people who established here.
But was it the missionaries or was it Cortez people?
Both. Cortez showed up here, but he did
First.
not establish a mission.
True.
The missionaries showed up later on.
Missionaries. So the
Yeah.
missionaries probably did.
Yeah. Now, this building was built with red brick, and the roof of it was made with beams of palm tree, also known as the Mexican fan palm. You see the leaf of it? Pay attention on it. The leaf looks like a big fan. Yeah. You've seen Mexican sombreros. They're tan.
True.
These leaves, once they're dried, are the material used to weave and make a sombrero. If you're going to buy an authentic Mexican sombrero, it has to be sombrero de palma. This has to be the real material, right? So pay attention on that. If you're gonna get a souvenir, that's my suggestion. Get the real stuff. So these were used as the beams, the leaves were used as the tiles or shingles on the top, and then you had a palapa. It's a palm roof. That's how it was made originally. Yeah. Now, as I said, this home is more than 200 years old and was used material from the zone only, so it was one story, and that's how old buildings work, because you can't really be stepping on top of a palapa. This corner building right here is from a different era. This is 105 years old. It's known as La Casa Grande, the big house. This was the first two-story house of the Mexican California. Have you heard the term Mexican California before?
I have, of
It's
course.
another way to call the peninsula. I think California was once one, from
Yeah.
here all the way up to Sacramento, right?
That's where we're from, California.
But then it got divided
Yes.
after the Mexican-American War.
Yeah.
There were so many Latin American families living up there, and from one day to another, they turned into North American just to get the division of the borders. So anyway, this is called as La Casa Grande because it was the first two-story house. And they brought redwood from the Bay Area of San Francisco to build it, which is way stronger than the palm tree trunks. If you have a chance later on, if you want to go have a beer upstairs, you'll be able to see the roof and step on 105-year-old wood. It's still there, it's solid.
Redwood, yeah.
Yeah, redwood.
Doesn't burn either.
I'm not sure about that, I haven't tried.
No, it doesn't.
No.
Now, this corner building right here, I'm not going to tell you what it was. I'm going to show you a picture later on. Now I'll give you a tip. The wall where the heart is won't be on that picture. I'll show you. Instead, there'll be something facing you, and then you'll know what it was. Okay? The roof, those red tiles, do you know how they're called? Texas. Like that state of the USA called Texas. You know, in Spanish, the X is Spanish, right? So we really need to know that. Texas, that's the name of the state. And Texas is an element of architecture for the state. So those Texas are original. Now that you know them, you'll know that state is called. Yeah. So that's a building that was built in 1925, and I'll show you a picture later on. Now, every corner, every building has a story to tell. Here in Los Cabos, it's very difficult to find addresses by typing name of streets and numbers. You'll have a hard time finding the numbers. So usually what we do is we tell you, see you in so-and-so business. Or even worse, sometimes we say, oh, I'll see you where the bakery was. We tell each other that. So when someone just shows up, how are they going to know where something was if there's like no old signs or anything? Thing is, as locals, that's just how we're used to speaking. So, for example, this one, La Casa Grande, it just blends in with other buildings nowadays. It's not that grande anymore. But historically speaking, it's an important landmark and significant historical building. So that's why we honor it, and we know if we're going to say, see it La Casa Grande, this will be the case.
Chris, what is that material right there?
It's just cement, but as you see the trunk, they resemble the redwoods, kind of, like a little tree house entrance. But it's just cement. Actually, the texture is they grab a fork and they just strike it.
All right.
So if you have a chance later on, again, you can check out that with detail.
Great.
Okay, so that's pretty much about all we're talking about of architecture. And my suggestion now would be walk a block and talk a little bit of geology and geography, a little bit of how this peninsula was formed, shall we? All right, let's walk.
Muy buen. Oh. So you're born and raised here?
Yes, born and raised.
One of the few.
Not too many of us, yes. So
It's like Las Vegas. Everybody's from everywhere else.
that's a very good comparison right there.
Oh, you're famous.
I gave him a tour 2 days ago. Yeah.
You know what I like about this area? It's like Puerto Vallarta.
Mm-hmm.
It's walking. Everything is in walking
Walkable,
distance.
pretty much. Where are you staying at?
Zoetry right now.
Oh yes. Okay. Well, that's not walking distance. Though.
No, not at all. No, not at all. But
Yeah, this is a local brewery.
all right.
They actually produce kind of, I'm not saying everyone's out, but yeah, they produce their beer here. I am not into beer, but these are so successful that you can even find their products in Walmart. So they're actually really good.
We got here.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Usted es el que me craft beer.
Yeah. Maybe it wasn't. There's 2 names on there. And they flag.
Okay. Well, that could be. So another way you want to explore a little bit more is you can actually buy a winning sample. So they serve like 6 different flavors.
Oh yeah.
This is a good way to
What's that
explore and
called?
see what you like the most.
That's called a flight.
If you're going to check in, you're flight. Okay.
That's what it's called. Yeah, flight.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I know.
I drink beer every day. No.
Okay. If you're going to check in,
So I know what I'm
you're
saying.
allowed legally to take up to 2 years of fire alcohol. So you can take that home if you wish. Up to 2 years. Even if you're not into
Hola.
it's a mindful gift to give somebody. It's a surprise. Or just for a back. Now, if you are going to take some, make sure you just take a product that you can't find back over there. Yeah. So, for example, the Werewolves International, look for something you've never seen before. See, that's actually a good question. Yes and no. So, we're in Cabo, right? Cabo Wabo is a famous tequila brand. But tequila is like Scotch. It can only be produced in certain areas.
No. Jalisco.
Exactly.
That's
Jalisco
it.
is that tequila place.
Yep. And mezcal in Oaxaca.
I don't like mezcal.
Scotch,
Have you tried this?
Scotland, cognac. Is it in France? Champagne.
Yeah. I mean, it's like even beer, like Kolsch.
Yeah.
Well, I like
All that.
champagne, but I don't like mezcal.
Bourbon would be.
Yeah. Kentucky, all that. But that's smart though, for them to do that.
Keeps it in their area.
Yeah. It protects themselves. It's like a hacienda. That's nice. It's real quaint right here. What is this?
It's a boutique hotel, family-owned hotel.
Yeah, it's real quaint, man.
Okay. Now, these columns
Oh, I love those flowers.
across that bench. Let's talk about stones. Maybe not your favorite subject, but let's cover a little bit of information about how this peninsula was formed. Granite, cantera, limestone. The peninsula as we know today is a result of earthquakes and volcanoes that pushed the peninsula from under up onto the surface 3 million years ago, which is actually not that long ago. So the Jurassic era was 65 million years ago. The peninsula did not exist, so there were no dinosaurs walking our land. That's a fact. We know this peninsula came up 3 million years ago because you can find fossils of megalodon up in our mountains.
Fossils of what?
Megalodon. So it's a prehistoric shark.
All right.
The teeth were this big. It was like
All right.
60 foot long.
Okay.
And you can find oysters and clams of these in the mountains. So that's how we know the mountains were under. Simple, right? We still have active volcanoes today. The volcanoes create hot springs. So there's actually hot springs nearby. And we have some underwater volcanoes that heat up the Gulf so much that it's about 15 Fahrenheit degree warmer than the Pacific Ocean. The Pacific Ocean is the biggest ocean in the world. And this ocean has a whirlpool and it brings the currents from the north of California down to here. So we get the currents from California coming this way. But then you also have the stagnant water of the Gulf of California in there. And one is very hot, one is very cold, and here the tip they mix out. Have you practiced scuba diving ever before with a tank and regulator?
No.
Do you happen to know who Jacques Cousteau was?
Yes.
I heard her name.
I grew up with Jacques Cousteau.
So he was a famous oceanographer. He was a Frenchman. And this was his famous place in the world. He's the guy who developed the regulator.
Oh.
The one who developed it. And he loved this place, and he nicknamed our sea the aquarium of the world.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so you right now are at the aquarium of the world. So I highly advise you guys go snorkeling, scuba diving, or if you don't like being underwater, go on a glass bottom. You have to check out what's under there. But also be warned, know what to expect. Because people who first do this tour then know what to look for. Because people who go snorkeling first say, you know what, I went snorkeling and I was not impressed. Why is it called that way? Let me explain. You're not going to find the most colorful and beautiful looking fish. So kids are like, yeah, I was looking for clownfish. You find famous Nemo. You don't have Nemo here. There's some parrots, but it's mostly on the
You got
turquoise
reefs.
color.
You got the reefs.
Yeah, we do have reef, we have coral, but it's called the aquarium of the world because of the biodiversity you can be found. So the amount of species you'll be able to see in just one session is just mind-blowing. So I insist, don't worry if you're not seeing too many colorful fish. Count the amount of different fish. And if you remember that and go to the Colony, the Caribbean, to Egypt, places that are more famous for snorkeling, you'll see 3 or 4 species on your own. So that's why this place is important for the world. It's not only for observing it. Sport fishing is also a huge reason why the people come here as well. I would say the third biggest reason. So number one is to relax and party, combination of both. And then both. So relaxing is number one, partying is number two, and sport fishing number three, and golfing is actually number four.
Yeah.
So, well, you got all those options of things that people come for. Okay, now talking a little bit of geography. The peninsula is like a long arm. Do you know anybody who has driven it? It's a famous road trip to do. No?
No, personally.
So the peninsula, this one, Baja, is longer than Italy. But yeah, if you put them side to side, this is longer. It doesn't look like it, but yeah, it is. There's a famous motorized vehicle called the Baja 1000. It's 1,000 miles long, basically, that's what we're talking about. So it would take you like 26 hours to drive it if you were doing it non-stop or taking turns.
From Tijuana?
Correct. Tijuana is the border city
Yes.
to here. San Lucas is the most southern of the cities.
All right.
And the peninsula has now had a division, a political division. So there's actually 2 states in this peninsula.
Oh,
One
I
is
know.
called Baja California Sur, and the other one is called Baja California.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so there's actually 2 states in the peninsula. And we are in the most southern of all the counties, Los Cabos. Do you guys know what Los Cabos means? That means the Capes.
Lost.
Like Cape Town. The Capes. Cape Cod, another one, right? A cape is exactly the opposite of what you would think as a bay. People know that a bay is like an inlet, right? So a cape is a point. It's a smaller point than a peninsula, okay? So the peninsula at the end has 5 points. So that's why it's kind of like a hand, you say. There are 2 cities. So 2 of these capes are cities, San Jose and San Lucas. Where are the other 3? Not cities, just points, or perhaps little villages. Cabo Pulmo is a national park. It's protected by UNESCO, so it's a very important place to preserve. The East Cape, Cabo del Este, is the next one. San Jose is in the middle. This is the capital. This is the older one of the cities. San Lucas is the next. Don't worry. The next one is San Lucas, and it has a big famous rock formation, the Arch, El Arco. And then south of there, at the very end of the peninsula, there's a lighthouse at Cabo Finisterra, also known as Land's End.
So where is Todos Santos?
Todos Santos is not part of this county. It's part of this county of La Paz.
Ah.
It's an hour and 10 minutes
No,
north from here.
we've been
So
La Paz.
City is the capital.
We've been La Paz and we did Todos Santos about 2 years, 3
It's
years.
very nice. So La Paz also has another UNESCO site, which is called Isla Espiritu Santo Island, Holy Spirit Island. You can swim with the whale shark there or with the sea lions. Also really good. But yeah, that would be like a whole different trip. It's really worth it. If you can explore, stay over there instead of drive kind of all day.
That's what we did. We drove and came back.
Kind of heavy. Nah, that's all right.
We didn't. Yeah.
Now, important tip, especially nowadays with technology. I'm going to warn you not to make a mistake. When you flew in, so you've been here before. Is this your first time in Los Cabos?
It's my first time.
Your first time, not yours.
It's been a very long
Okay, long time ago now. There's 2 international airports in Los Cabos. Los Cabos, I insist, is the name of the county. Now that you know what Cabo means, try to help us with other tourists that they don't generalize and say, oh, welcome to Cabo. Thing is, who says, oh, welcome to Peninsula? Right? It's just geology. So say, welcome to San Jose, welcome to San Lucas, or Los Cabos, right? The 2 airports, one is a CSL, means Cabo San Lucas Airport. The other one is SJD, means San Jose del Cabo. And I would have liked it to be SJC, but San Jose, California won those votes. But then San Jose, Costa Rica is also SJC. So we're SJD, know that. When people buy tickets and fly into Los Cabos, airports sometimes say, you're flying into Cabo San Lucas, but it says SJD. So people get mixed up. It's very common for people not to know the difference between the cities, because airports got it wrong too, or airlines. And when you arrive to the airports, if you're going to your hotel, you don't get lost, not a problem. But getting back to the right airport can be tricky. If you write International Airport of Cabo San Lucas, you may pick the wrong one. So you have no idea how many people lose their flights all the time because they order an Uber or they just follow Google Maps without knowing the zone and wind up in the wrong airport. So double check when you're flying out because they're both international, okay? Just double check what airport you flew into to know you're flying out of the same one again. You can check it with. Yeah, when you're double checking out. Yeah, you gotta double check it. Yeah, do so. Yeah, do so. It's frustrating to see how people get very mad for not being able to read or being advised. That one, right? Okay, so that's clarifying a little bit of the name of the places and how you can help us out so people don't get. Can you tell which is the real native one?
I'm gonna give it to you. That one.
Yes, the leaf. That one. Good job.
I was all wrong.
So the fan, the leaf, that's the local one. Okay. Now, my favorite one though is the one that's leaning against the building. See how?
Whoa, golly.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
That's a date palm. Dates, fruits.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's what they grow on. They grow on that.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's what they grow on. In Southern California, you can see these a lot. Actually,
Yeah.
you see these even more.
In Palm Springs.
So, in the 200th anniversary of George Washington, they took 200 of these palm trees and put it on Washington Boulevard fence. And they grow
died.
and grow and grow. No, they did very well. They adapted it very good. So people, when they think California driving boulevards near the ocean, they think these palm trees. The Mexican palm trees. They're really Mexican. But anyway, I mean, California was once Mexico, so that's all right.
Yeah.
Now behind us, this one right here, what's growing on it? You see? Yes. They're little coconuts. They're not ready yet. They'll be ready by perhaps August. Now, coconuts are treacherous because
They drop on your head.
yeah.
Boop,
Just a
boop.
joke. Mexicans say, "Be aware of el coco." Means coconut. Statistically speaking, more people die because of getting hit by a coconut than a shark attack. Honestly, you gotta be careful of coconuts. Not a shark. Coconuts are really real. Okay. Anyway, we're going to walk through this hotel reception. We have to put on the mask to get through this building because masks are compulsory if there's a roof on. It's not an outdoor. So there's a group of pictures right here. I want to show you, first of all, I want you to ask if you recognize this place.
Which place? It gotta be here. It gotta be here.
Yes, corner.
Yeah.
The cafe with the heart.
Oh my gosh.
Correct.
That's
So was it even-
amazing.
Yes. And this is a picture from the 50s though. And you see what's here? was a gas station. It was a gas station. After First World War, a very interesting discovery would happen here. Silver. Lots and lots and lots of silver. And people who depleted the gold rush in California then moved out here. But also moved out here from the United States. So we started having lots of influence from Europe and China. And this became the second wealthiest place in Mexico. After the capital, after Mexico City. So Ford Motors car agencies, second agency, that was right here. The first one was in Mexico City, the second one was in front of the main square. So, sorry, the city hall. So this place was thriving, there was lots of rich people. And that's where the first gas station was established, that building we saw right here. Now that date tree that's leaning on the building that we saw in the back of the patio is this date tree right there. We would be splashing around here if we weren't taking in that picture. This happened because of the hurricane.
What year is that?
The 50s. So all these are
Oh,
from
50s.
1950s. Yeah, all these are from 1950s. And just to say and explain, we are in hurricane zone. I told you coconuts are treacherous, not only falling on your head, but when hurricanes come, coconuts fly like cannonballs. Once they get off the street and they smash windows, they can go through windshields. And very,
I
very
bet that's scary.
Super, super scary.
Hopefully.
So you see here, there's a metal
Yeah.
curtain. It
Oh.
slides down when hurricanes happen. So the purpose of this hurricane shutter is to keep water from coming in because this area floods. Yeah, so you see that picture on the right side. This whole area can flood. As locals, we learn how to deal with storms and hurricanes. And that's one of the very important things to teach kids and residents of this place. They don't know and don't expect anything to happen. This is the county with the most direct impacts of storms. So being hurricane savvy is key to survival.
When is hurricane season?
From August to October, for those 3 months, we get an average of 15 days of rain only. 80% of the time it rains here is because there's a hurricane. And when it rains here, it's not just national shelter, it's like
Monsoons, like India.
Like, exactly, yeah. it's
You see on the airplane, you see all the dry riverbed.
You saw them, yes? So they're all white.
Yes.
Because for a couple of hours, from side to side, it just flushes. This really creates strong grab. We'll walk over to this corner over here.
Just got earthquake there.
So in Mexico, where have you guys traveled?
It's my first time in Mexico.
Ah,
It's true.
but no, hold on. What about you?
Here in San Miguel de Allende.
Okay.
We are 2 blocks away from the main square. Past that rock wall, we reach the end of town. There are no more buildings over there.
Wow.
That's where the native people lived. It's a protected area. But not only because they live there, but because it's an oasis. That's where our oasis starts. If you follow this whole boulevard to your left side, you'll always see only plants. And maybe half a mile down that way, you'll start seeing water. It rises. So the dry rivers you saw at some point, they drag so much water under and it will surface. And it will surface right by the ocean. And we have a coastal lagoon here. We are blessed because here in San Jose, we have this fresh water.
Yeah.
It's a desert. If you drive a little far away from the center, it's dry as a bone out there.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so
I
that's
done
why
it.
there was able to be native people here, and that's why West Spanish funded this place too. Yep.
So did they get money from the government from Mexico? Like America, the natives get compensation.
We'll get to that in a bit.
All right.
Now, the native people are called Pericu, P-E-R-I-C-U.
All right.
They call this place Añuiti, which means the place among the palm trees. Now, the Pericu people look absolutely nothing like your Native American tribes. If you think about Native
Really?
American people, Eskimos, Aztec, Mayas, so throughout the whole continent,
Oh.
in general, the most accepted theory is that they arrived in the Ice Age. That's why they look alike. The Perico people, they were half foot taller than average. Their skulls were longer, their eyes were rounder and wider. Their chests were wider too. The most accepted theory explains that they arrived here on boats. Fiji, New Guinea, Samoa, islanders, like Hawaii. So they were big, different people. Perico people believed in a god called Niparaha who taught them how to live here and adapt to eat what was available in the zone, such as cactus. So, important for you guys to have your share, fair amount of cactus, nopales, okay? You're in the desert, you got it. You
No,
have to.
yeah, got you.
Now, Niparaha had an enemy called Tuparan, and there was an epic battle between them both. Tuparan lost the battle. He was sent down as a prisoner to land among humans, but imprisoned in a cave near the ocean. And then Niparaha, the good god, created whales to swim in front of the caves. This way Tuparan would fear escaping for all eternity. Now, this is a very, very short version of the legend, because we're on the short tour today too. But it's interesting to see how the Perico people 13,000 years ago spoke about two of the most important things in Los Cabos today. We talk about rock formations and caves. So by far the most visited place in Los Cabos is the rock formation, the arch in this case. You been there? You have?
Yeah, we have.
No, later
Well,
this week.
Okay.
Oh,
So
yeah, we
it's
did.
important when you go, I'll give you some tips. Is, I'm not sure if you booked it already, you always have time to change it. Go on a small water taxi, not a cruise ship, definitely not on a sailboat, because they cannot drop you off at the most sacred of all the sections. There is a beach right next to the arch called Tiene Camu, which in Perico language means a place among two oceans. It's a sacred Perico beach. It's protected, there's no buildings on it. People say that if you get on that beach, you feel vibrations and energy from our ancestors. I studied industrial engineering, and I realized that those vibrations and energy are nothing but those powerful waves from the Pacific Ocean hitting the sand. So yeah, it moves, but for me it's just a wave. But anyway, okay, it is a sacred protected area, and it should be treated as so. Because nowadays, tour guides call it Lovers Beach and Divorce Beach.
yeah.
Because it's fun, right? But then people go and don't really respect it for what it's supposed to be. So that's one of the efforts we're doing on this project, is teach people why that area is protected.
I have a question though,
Yes.
about the locals here. Do they have their own language? Do they still
Yes.
speak their language?
No,
Is it
they don't
like
speak the language
hieroglyphics?
anymore. They would not. They didn't have an alphabet, but they would do cave painting and rock paintings. And yes, they had their own unique language, which was nothing compared to any of the Native American tribes. Again, because they were islanders.
Yeah.
But also the interesting fact is that it doesn't really compare to the Fijian or Samoan.
Or Hawaiian, but they
No.
there's no local language of those
No one
folks.
can fluently speak anymore. No, they don't.
But there's no writings either.
No. Yeah. So the words we know are from the Spaniards or British who arrived here, and as they heard it, wrote it in their language. So then there's different concepts. For example, I said ni para acá, but some people say no, it's ni para allá. Ni para acá, ni para allá. It sounds so similar. We don't really know exactly how they pronounce it in the olden days. So more or less, right?
That
Yeah, it's really close.
no, because we've been to
No.
Hawaii a couple times. It's just a trip to
I bet.
have the Tahitians and all that come way over here.
So we have this here too. Now the legend also explains about the formation of whales. Do you have access to a 500 Mexico peso bill?
No.
If you run
Oh,
into one,
probably
actually,
online.
if you pay attention, you'll see there's whales on it. Whales that were born here in our state. Gray whales. Every single gray whale in this planet was born here in this state. So the legend explains the formation of whales and, well, that's the truth. They're all born. So for us, the whales are sacred gray whales. Okay, we're gonna point out a couple things from here and then we'll walk back into town. This chimney right here is not a real one. It's just a representation, and it shows that time when the silver rush was heavy in the 1920s. But also, it's significant for the sugarcane plantations. So during that same era, there was lots of sugarcane plantations. Right next to it, those very thin bamboos are called carrizo. It's a native type of a bamboo. Lastly, this dusty road is a very busy one. You'll actually be surprised how important it is. Let's go to our next stop and I'll tell you why.
El Camino, Real, yes, all the way up.
Yeah, so if you guys go to California, pay attention and you'll see on Highway 1 or the centers of the old towns, there'll be streets called El Camino Real. El Camino Real is a road that starts right here and ends in Sonoma County.
Yeah.
It goes through the whole peninsula and through almost all of California.
Highway 1, wait.
Yeah, exactly. So let's give some steps back and look at this map.
Yeah.
So this map right here has
The missions.
all the mission churches from the Mexican California.
There we go.
So all those famous cities in California whose name starts like San or Santa, those are all part of El Camino Real. So there's others that are not in Spanish, right? Fremont, for example, has not. And
Fremont, well, they got the Ohlone, though, Indians.
yes, they do.
They
but
got, yeah, you're right. You're right.
Yeah, so they have more ancient history, but not missionary history. Yeah.
Yep.
So anyway,
Yeah.
these are all the mission churches throughout the Mexican California, and well, the map is not big enough, but USA California has basically the same separation of churches. So the idea was missions were at least one horseback walking distance from each other. When the Spaniards established here, they strategically did that so they would never have to camp out. They always had a safe place where to spend the night
Yeah.
without getting attacked by the natives. And as missionaries, they were supposed to arrive and transform the natives peacefully into Catholic, because they were their mission. That was their mission. The peaceful transformation. We didn't quite
Yeah, right.
that
Please.
well, honestly.
No.
But it was very, very different to how Cortés conquered mainland Mexico. Cortés is known as the conqueror.
Yeah, way different.
So he's not a missionary, he's a conqueror. We'll talk a little bit more about Cortés later on.
Let me just say this, because they don't know. In California, so we have Highway 1 to go like Malibu, all the way up to the Bay Area, all the way up. But it converts over from Highway 1 to El Camino Real, where like in Silicon Valley, there's actually a street, a long street, and you have these little brown signs that says El Camino Real, like a historical
Route, yeah.
a historical route. It's not a freeway, but then you got Highway 1. So to get to Santa Rosa, which is Sonoma County, you have to cross the Golden Gate Bridge. But they did that all the way up. So there is, in the Bay Area,
There's San
Rafael
Yeah.
and San Francisco Dolores,
Exactly. That's
which is what it's like 1600. It's so much history. In Fremont, like you were saying, it's some like he's saying. He's saying everything is right.
The churches was San Bruno in 1683.
San Bruno.
Yeah.
Where's
There's
that?
actually a San Bruno up in
Yeah,
California.
yes, it is.
So cold.
It's no. He talking about here. He's talking about here, Sabrina.
Yes, there's another San Bruno.
Yeah.
Right here.
Yeah, California, San
There's
Bruno.
only so many saints.
But you know what thing is, there's a lot of Native Americans. Not all of them spoke the same language, but they literally did. They came in, took them over, converted them over, and to have their language. And there's still little places you go visit all throughout California, the missions.
You see these windows have some layers of bricks behind them? It seemed like it would be a mistake in architecture, but they actually realized that the windows were too low and this area would flood and the water would jump in, so they just put some extra layers so the water would not jump in anymore. Yeah, so they just have to adapt to this problem.
Ignacio.
So with all the missions back to like
Yeah.
since it was Spanish, like in Spain they do the pilgrimage, right?
Yes, they do.
Do they do a pilgrimage here too?
No,
through all the churches?
They used to, but then they built a wall, right?
Yep.
San
I guess that
Francisco,
cuts
the
it out,
California
yeah.
wall. And then some of the missions in Mexico, they were not feasible to sustain, and they eventually got destroyed. So you can't really connect all the Camino Real anymore. Next up right here. So they do one called Ruta de las Misiones, and because they were one horseback walking distance away,
Yep.
not walking away, they do it on horses. So you have, they say cabalgata. So there's a bunch of ranchers on horses. They go from one church to another, and they connect 5 of the churches. That's all they do.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, if you're really into it and you want to do it, you gotta get yourself close.
Gotta learn how to ride one.
Yeah, first, okay. Now,
But I would say this, back at home in California, I visited. We walked by them. Even in San Francisco. The missions, yeah.
yeah.
It's a
Okay.
trip.
Do you recognize this plant right here? It's not aloe vera. It looks like it. Aloe vera is actually not
Is it a guava?
No
It's a
way.
kind of agave, yes. Close. It's mezcal. Mezcal.
I don't
that's
like
smoky.
mezcal.
Well, this is a plant, so okay. It's
Yeah.
alright. You
Yeah.
must like it. Anyway, there's different kind of cacti. Yeah?
Yeah.
That cactus behind that tree is like 3-4 inches diameter. That's a very important local plant called pitaya. And it gives a fruit. I would say pitaya fruit.
It's like
Like prickly
a
pear.
fuchsia.
You know where I'm going.
Yeah.
Almost. Yeah, let me just put things together. There's many varieties of pitaya, as there's many varieties of apples, right?
True.
Not all the varieties can be found at supermarkets. They pick some, maybe the best, the easiest to grow, the fastest to grow, to be sold in supermarkets. You're never going to be able to find that pitaya in supermarkets.
Which one are you pointing to?
What's this?
Now, pitayas were so important for native people. The calendar talked about it.
Grandma Emma.
This cactus thing right here? Sabrina, this? This?
Pitayas, darkwood is really from Mexico. It's a native plant to Mexico. But it's traditional over there. The thing is, traditions are born when a group of people repeat something, it becomes a tradition. Now, the other way around, sometimes it happens also, like chocolate. It's really native to Mexico, but it's more famous in Switzerland, for example. Swiss chocolate, Belgian chocolate. People think Italian food and they think tomato sauce, right? Tomato sauce are native to Mexico. There's many things like that. Native things are different. Yep. Now there's a tiny little cactus right there. Tiny swamp. See? It's like almost like a little shrub. That cactus right there is called choya. Choya. People from this state are called cholleros. And they're very proud to be called cholleros. If you can repeat the name, remember the name chollero, it would be very good to have a conversation with somebody and bring it up as a topic. A good way to say, first ask their name. Once you ask their name, ask, are you a chollero? You perhaps will get one or two answers. They'll say yes or say no. If they say yes, they'll be very proud and they'll kind of wonder what are you found out about it? Or what's the recipe like about it? Okay, so then you're free to ask any conversation. But if the answer is no, which is most likely one of the answers, because only 1 out of 5 people you meet will actually be born and raised here, most people are not. Perhaps the answer, common answer will say no. Then you'll be able to ask, how long have you been here? They'll tell you how long they'll be in here, and then ask, and do you love this place or not? And they'll be surprised, like, why are you asking that? So my request for you guys is help us to explain to people that being a chollero is not a matter of being born. When you ask people where you're from, you're really asking, where is home to you? You did not ask, where were you born? Most people automatically answer where they were born. But where you're from is where you belong. Where's home to you? And we need people who are living here to say they're local, regardless of where they were born. We need people to be involved and know the community. And watch after the kids so they don't wind up with the drunk houses. Yeah? So this is just a tiny little conversation you can put to pick people's mind. That if they love this place, that's enough to be called cholleros, to be called locals.
Well, let me say this, and what you're saying is real. When we have conversations with people that work, 90% are not from Los Cabos. They're from Michicon, they're from
Yes.
Mexico City.
Yes?
We had a taxi driver who was actually from here. Out of probably 10 people. Only one.
Oh, so far you would. Okay.
But there are some who've been here for 5 years, 7 years,
Yeah.
8 years.
And we need.
And some
people.
love it though.
Yeah.
And some come for the opportunity for working.
Exactly. But since there's no borders and you don't need papers to get over and back, people just go and come a lot. And lots of people in their mind are like, I'm just gonna make money and leave. So I understand that there's presidents of countries that don't like migration because it's not people who show up with the idea of staying, it's people who show up to be there temporarily. So that's where sometimes migration cannot be that great. But if you welcome the people and get them involved, then migration is actually all right. So that's kind of our topic, our idea of this project, is teaching them that if they're living here, if they like what they're doing for a living and their job, then they're part of our community too. Right? Okay, so this is just something to pick your minds and
No,
hope
I
you can help
appreciate
us out.
it. I appreciate
Let's
it.
go to our next stop. Carry on.
Appreciate it, man. Hey, you know what's total different? You're doing this out of the love out of your heart, man.
Yes. Yeah. Yes. It's not a tour company. It's not a,
No.
I'm not an employee. And actually, well, I'm a mountain bike instructor,
All right.
surf instructor, and flyboarding instructor. So I do that during daytime. But I mean, after sunset, I can't do any of these outdoors things
Well,
anymore.
Guess
So this is when I
guess
do
what
it.
I got going on?
What are you doing?
I got a YouTube channel
Oh, really? All right.
called
So-
Mexico Beach Life Club.
Oh, Beach Night Club.
Mexico Beach Life
Beach Life. Got it.
Club.
Oh, got
dot
it.
com.
Got it.
I'm a
Okay.
tour agent, so
Nice. Okay.
I
well,
mean I go different resorts through Mexico. I only do resorts in Mexico.
cool.
I got your information.
Right on.
But when I'm gonna put this on YouTube,
Hopefully,
man.
yeah. With the
You, and then your message is gonna go out.
Nice. So you filmed it already?
Yeah, it's all filming you, baby.
Cool. Thank you, man.
It's all you, man. So once it all posted up, you get the word out even more. So, man, it's just brand new for me. I got 22 subscribers, maybe 23, 24. You know what I'm saying? So, anyhow. So, but what you're doing is good, man. It's a good cause.
All right. This roof on top of us is made out of carrizo, which I pointed out.
I see that.
The local kind of bamboo. Yeah.
We seen that, Serena. Look
So
at that.
people would use these to make flutes, but also they would make boats. As I mentioned, Perico people were islanders. They were not like in mainland. Perico people love to navigate. In mainland, they were actually afraid of navigating. They used poles, like those in Indonesia, to push from shallow waters. Perico people use single blade paddles, which is actually different technology. I mean, it's not impressive technology, but it was different methods, right? Perico people did not practice agriculture. They were hunters, gatherers, and fishermen. Fishing by far was the thing they did the most. If you walk around the neighborhoods, you may spot out that there's signs that says Almeja Viva. So lots of local people, like Perico heritage, they go diving for themselves, go home and have the clam alive and keep it alive to sell it. A local tradition is buy the clam, you open it and inspect it, and you may have a prize inside it. You know what it is? Correct. So local custom is pearls as decoration. In fact, they're so important, the pearls here, that even Queen Elizabeth from England has a pearl from here on her crown. So that's a good souvenir to buy. Not very cheap, but yeah, pearls are important here. And Perico people, no exception. They had lots of pearls, like mostly royalty. Now, once we inspect the clam, we squeeze the lime, and when it's moving, we eat it. Still moving. And lots of people think that we local people are kind of crazy for eating moving clam. The idea is you want to make sure it's fresh. And if it still moves, it's fresh, definitely. If it didn't, who knows how long it's been dead. And it's hot here. Not right now. This is a very nice part of the year. So it's not too hot.
It was hot today. I don't know about that. What you talking about?
Yeah, it was hot today.
You don't want to come back in summer then. This is just spring.
Nah, it was hot. Oh yeah, we've been here in November. And that's not.
November is still all right too.
Oh God.
November right now is very similar.
So when is hot? When is hot?
July, September.
But doesn't it rain a lot, or?
Yeah, but it rains for some hours only. It's
Yeah.
torrential, but as soon as it stops
No,
raining,
why
it's
not?
still hot again.
No.
Like Florida, where it just rains in the
I don't want
afternoon.
to be like
Well,
in the rain.
Here it just rains on given days because the hurricane's coming. So
Right.
you may have
That's
5
why you don't
non-stop
wanna be-
Sundays. That's why you got to know a local to be able to point you out where to find.
And we don't
real
mind
stuff.
that personally. Do you
Well,
guys?
it's part of the experience.
I like, yeah, I prefer that
a good
because it's
rule of
better
thumb.
food.
My mom said, if you see anywhere in the world you travel a queue behind someone who's a street vendor, go ahead and buy whatever everyone else is buying.
Oh, yeah.
You'll be fine.
Yeah.
If it's a street vendor and he sells that much, it means there's rotation on his food. It's not like stagnant food. It's good food to go for. Who knows? Maybe be too spicy, but that's just the only downside of it. It will be very affordable too. Now, the opposite of street vendor foods, I mentioned there was a big famous time for silver. Do not buy silver from street vendors though, because you don't know if it's just outside covered silver and not real covered silver, not full silver. If you're gonna buy silver, it does have to be from one of the local shops, and it will be a little bit more expensive because it's unique pieces, it's designer things, not mass productions, right?
So no,
So just know
don't buy
when
from
to
the,
buy
don't
them.
buy from the briefcase.
Exactly, don't. Yeah. And actually, another one important one to know, for example, if you're at Medano Beach and someone comes and offers cigars, it's like, why is people offering cigars on the beach? Sometimes they have other things to smoke under that same box. Yeah, so that's a bigger business.
Well, we don't smoke, so.
Yeah, well, just so you know. Mexico is still working on legalizing it, but well,
That's all good.
that's where you find it. All right. Now, I assume you've seen enough of these flags all over the place, right? Do you know what these flags are about?
The guy in Puerto Vallarta, I don't know.
They're a Mexican tradition called Dia del Muerto, Day of the Dead.
I'm about to say that. Yeah, yeah.
Now, Day of the Dead got very popular with two things made from Hollywood, basically. One was James Bond movie. So there was a parade in Mexico City, people ran through it, and people started talking and saying like, oh wow, this Day of the Dead, an interesting thing happening in Mexico. And then more recently there's a cartoon called Coco, and even more people found out about it.
Yeah.
So people now identify these flags to be, oh, Mexico colorful, right? And then they see skulls and skeletons and it's like, they don't think it's creepy. But, I mean, when I was a kid and tourists would see our skulls and skeletons, they were like, what's going on here? You see, sometimes Hollywood actually does good things. Now people understand it. Hasn't always been like that though. You mentioned Hernan Cortez. When Hernan Cortez arrived here, in the name of God, nearly 10 million native people were killed in northern Spain. Many of them with diseases.
Yeah.
Some people say that deliberately many of the water reservoirs of the native people were poisoned with sick soldiers from the Spaniards. And then slowly they died. Now, he thought that, for example, in Day of the Dead, we serve a meal to the dead people. And he thought that was like worshipping the devil. So he just did not like things like that. And thank God now the word is more accepted. Now, Cortez was known as the conqueror of Mexico, and they said it. Charles V was the king of Spain. They're not really like Cortez, because Cortez would disobey very much for his own glory. And Charles V asked Cortez to continue his journey on the other side of New Spain. While he was busy conquering New Spain, Magellan crossed the Pacific Ocean, and his crew eventually completed a circumnavigation. So Spain now knew the Earth was round for a fact, and they wanted Cortez now to build boats on the other side of New Spain and find a straight route over to Asia. So he did. He built some new boats. He sent some explorers before him. He went north and then discovered a new sea, which is called Sea of Cortez. That's why it's called the Sea of Cortez. Now, time later, we look back at what happened and why it was called that way, and realize Cortez was not a good guy. So there's an effort, and there's another reason why we call it the Gulf of California. It's just not to call it the Sea of Cortez. But it's exactly the same place, okay? So the same area can be called legally, officially, any of both options. Sea of Cortez or Gulf of California. Yeah. Let's go to our next stop, which pretty much the last stop on our tour tonight.
Okay.
Now, it's important to clarify and warn you, add it's like we're reading a historical fact.
It's right here. The entrance is right here.
And at some point, 7:30, we gotta close.
Yeah.
Okay? So we're not going to be able to cover all the history of Los Cabos. We're going to miss out some big parts of it. But as I insist, the tour we do with the kids is like 40 minutes, right? That's okay, right? If you have any specific questions on the topic, it's drop off. You can go develop some of them.
And FYI, this is a Tuesday. We out here. They crossed our art gallery. That's funny.
Yeah, totally. Okay, this statue right here represents the solar system, and these circles have imaginary lines on them, which planets us too. They're imaginary after all, right? The most important imaginary line in the world is the equator, which is down the middle. And then the two second most important ones are the tropics, Cancer and Capricorn. Right now, Los Cabos is basically on the tropic of Cancer. It's a little further north than Canada, maybe 40 minutes away on your drive. The tropics were very, very important for navigation before maps existed. People would navigate at night. They would look up at the stars, and based on the stars' positions, they knew the latitude on Earth. And they knew at the daytime, the sun's shadow is also well to predict if you're on the tropics. So that's why Columbus arrived to the Caribbean area. That's why Hernan Cortez arrived to Mexico City, and that's why they stumbled upon the peninsula. They were always following this line because they had no maps. Yeah? Now,
Makes sense.
have you heard about the siesta? You know what siesta means?
Sleep.
Yeah, now, it's a very traditional thing in Mexico. It's called that way, and there's an origin of it.
I love naps.
When people would navigate, they were navigating at night. And at sunrise, you know the sun would rise to the east.
Yep.
And after 6 hours of sunlight, and the sun is too high, you don't have a good reference to navigate. So people should not be navigating because you can't. And that's when everyone was sleeping.
I can navigate my husband to do something around the house, though.